Imagine this, you're 6 months pregnant and still taking care of 23 kids. That actually happened to many royal women in the past. For hundreds of years, royal women weren't just supposed to have babies. It was like they were baby-making machines, stuck in an endless loop of getting pregnant, losing babies, and starting over. People thought their main value was having babies. These girls got married when they were still teenagers. Their lives were like, get pregnant, have the baby, hand it off to nurses, rest just enough to recover, then go back to their husbands to try for another baby. They weren't scared of getting older. They were hoping for menopause because it was the only way to finally stop the baby cycle. In this story, we'll talk about 8 queens from history who had the most children. Mumtaz Mahal was born in 1593 and came from an important Persian family. She got married at 19 to the future emperor, Shah Jahan. He had 2 other wives, those were more for politics, but his heart only belonged to Mumtaz. He thought she was the most beautiful and good-hearted woman alive. She was more than just his wife, she was his closest helper. She even went on war trips with him. He gave her amazing jewels and the highest pay ever given to a Mughal queen. They had 14 kids together, but only 7 lived to grow up. 2 of them were Jahanara Begum and Aurangzeb, who later became emperor. Her last baby was the hardest. After 30 painful hours of labor, she gave birth to her 14th child, named Gahar, but then she died from bleeding too much. Shah Jahan was heartbroken and built the beautiful Taj Mahal as her grave. He was buried next to her 27 years later. After he died, his 4 sons fought a violent battle to take over, and Aurangzeb became the next powerful but harsh ruler. Charlotte was born in 1744 in Germany and had a tiny bit of African ancestry from way back about 13 generations. She married King George III of Britain when she was just 17. They actually loved staying home with their family more than going to fancy royal parties. Charlotte didn't wait. She had her first baby, the future King George IV, within a year. Over the next 21 years, she had 15 babies. Their names were George IV, Frederick, then William IV, Charlotte, who became Queen of Württemberg, Edward, who was Queen Victoria's dad, Augusta, Elizabeth, Ernest Augustus, who became King of Hanover, Adolphus, Mary, Sophia, Octavius, Alfred, and Amelia. Charlotte really didn't like being pregnant all the time. When she was expecting her 14th baby, she wrote something very sad. "I don't think even a prisoner wants freedom as much as I want to be done with this pregnancy. I would be so happy if I knew this was the last time." Still, she truly loved her kids, and they loved her back. Sadly, 2 of her sons, Alfred and Octavius, died young from smallpox at ages 2 and 4. It was amazing for the 1700s, but the rest of the children grew up, probably because of what she went through. Charlotte tried hard to protect her daughters. She didn't let them marry young. Some of them never got married at all. Others waited until their 40s. That way, they didn't have to go through tons of pregnancies. Instead, she made sure they were well educated. But none of her girls had kids who lived. Later on, her husband, King George III, became very sick in his mind. Their oldest son had to rule in his place. Queen Charlotte died peacefully at 74, surrounded by many of her children. Now, let's talk about Eleanor of Castile, a Spanish princess named after her great-great-grandmother, Eleanor of Aquitaine. She married Prince Edward, later King Edward I of England, when she was only 13. He was 15. Edward was a fierce fighter who conquered Wales and fought Scotland, but to his wife, he was loyal and loving. Eleanor was really strong. She followed Edward on his army trips, even giving birth while traveling. She had 16 kids. Her first baby came when she was only 13, but that baby died after just a few days. Her next 2, Catherine and Joan, also died soon after being born. That happened a lot to moms who were way too young to give birth. Her next 2 boys, John and Henry, made it through birth, but died before they turned 10. Her 6th child, another Eleanor, was the first to grow up. Then, during a holy war trip, she had a stillborn baby girl. By then, her body was totally worn out. Then tragedy, her only surviving son, and the next in line, Alfonso, got sick and died at age 10. So Eleanor had one more baby, the future king, Edward II, who would have a very sad reign. In 1307, while traveling with her husband in the north of England, Eleanor got malaria. Her body was too tired to recover. Her children came to say goodbye before she passed away at age 48. King Edward was so sad that he built 12 lovely stone crosses, one for each place her funeral stopped on the way to London. Altogether, she gave birth to 16 children. Now meet Queen Karen, also called Anna. She was the daughter of a Turkish prince. Karen married King Leo II of Armenia before the year 1262. She was known for being sweet, beautiful, and always standing by her husband in good and bad times. She had an amazing 16 kids, 10 single babies, and 3 sets of twins. Her first son, whose name we don't know, died young, as did her next two, Constantine and Phime. Her fourth son, Hetum II, became king, but he was murdered. Then came Isabella. After her, her son Theodose III became king too, but he was also murdered. Queen Karen's last pregnancy gave her twin sons at Ginnersheim, who also became king and was murdered. And Olin, exhausted after so many pregnancies, Queen Corin became a nun. She moved to a quiet monastery where she died in 1285. Maria Theresa was born in 1717 and later became the Holy Roman Empress. At age 19, she married Duke Francis of Lorraine and truly loved him, though he constantly cheated on her. Since women weren't allowed to rule everywhere, she made him copera but kept him out of big decisions. She had all the real power. While running the empire and making big changes, she gave birth to 16 children over 19 years. She even said that if she hadn't been pregnant all the time, she would have gone into battle herself. She used her 13 surviving children smartly, marrying them off to other royal families across Europe. Her family lived in fear of smallpox. It killed several of her children. So Maria Theresa became a huge supporter of the new smallpox shot that helped save lives. Some of her more famous kids were Ferdinand, Marie Antoinette, who became Queen of France, and Maximilian, who became an archbishop. Maria Theresa was jealous of all her husband's girlfriends, so she made a strict rule to stop cheating, prostitution, and such, hoping someone would catch him in the act. Francis died after 29 years married. Maria Theresa was heartbroken and wore black for the rest of her life. Later, she got smallpox herself and died at 63. Her daughter, Maria Carolina, inherited her mum's baby-making skills. She was very close with her younger sister, Marie Antoinette. The future Queen of France. Maria Carolina's mom had already promised 3 of her sisters to marry King Ferdinand of Naples and Sicily, but they all died from smallpox, so Maria Carolina had to take their place. She cried and begged not to go, thinking the marriage was cursed. But her mum didn't listen. She was sent to Italy at 15. She didn't like the king at all. She thought he was ugly, and he made rude comments about their first night, but that didn't stop her from doing her royal job. She had 17 children, although only 7 grew up. Since her husband wasn't a great ruler, Maria Carolina quickly took control. Like her mum, she used her kids' marriages to get more power for the family. When Napoleon invaded, she and her family ran away to Austria and begged her nephew, Emperor Francis I, for help. But before her husband could become king again, Maria Carolina was found dead on the floor, surrounded by paperwork. She'd had a stroke at 62. She never got to see Napoleon lose or her husband return to the throne. Princess Anne, born in 1665, was the daughter of King James II. When she was 18, she married Prince George of Denmark. Their lives turned into a very sad story. Their first baby was stillborn. Then they had 2 daughters, Mary and Anne Sophia. The girls were only 2 and 1 when the whole family caught smallpox. Anne also had a miscarriage. Both daughters died. After that, Anne and her husband were so sad they would just sit and hold hands in silence. Over 16 years, Anne was pregnant 18 times, but none of the babies lived long. Only a few babies lived long enough to be given names. Her 7th baby, Prince William, Duke of Gloucester, was the one she loved dearly and the last hope for the royal family. He died at 11 from a mysterious illness. Her 8th and 9th babies, Mary and George, were born alive but died hours later. Her 15th pregnancy ended in twin miscarriages that were too early to even name. Now doctors think Anne had something called Hughes syndrome, which makes blood too thick and sticky, so babies don't get enough blood. Just taking aspirin might have saved some of her babies. A very sad thought. And finally, here's the queen who had the most children ever. The Regendadia, Queen of Georgia, with 23 children. She was born in 1738 as a Georgian princess. She married King Heraclius II when she was just 12, and he was already 30. He had 4 sons from his last wife. Over 30 years, Queen Darajon had 23 kids. Out of those, 13 lived to grow up. Darajon really wanted her own sons, not her stepsons, to become kings. She got her husband to sign a paper saying that after their oldest son George became king, her boys would take the throne next. But when Heraclius died, King George III tore that paper up and said his stepmom had forced his dad to write it. This started a big fight between George and Queen Darajon and her 5 sons, Mirian, Alexander, and Parnaos. They each looked for powerful friends. George teamed up with Russia. Darajon's sons turned to Iran. Alexander tried to take over but failed. Queen Darajon was arrested and locked up. When King George III died in 1800, Russia stepped in. Darajon asked the Russian ruler, Tsar Alexander I, to let one of her sons be king instead of Georgia's son David. But the Tsar shocked everyone. He took over Georgia completely, ending 1,000 years of royal rule by the Bagrationi family. Darajon and her family were forced to move to Russia so the government could watch them. She spent her last years in a small rented house in St. Petersburg and died there in 1807 at age 69. These queens weren't just moms, they were brave, strong women who went through body pain and deep heartbreak we can hardly imagine. Their wombs were like battlefields. Their children were their greatest joy, but also important tools in the hard, dangerous game of royal power. Their stories are full of shock and sadness, showing just how heavy royal life could be.